right, good morning. Our learning is Nishmas Mindel Mariam Bas Kalman Reuven, her Neshama Shavan Aliyah. We are going to be wrapping up the different pieces of jewelry that a woman is allowed and not allowed to be wearing on Shabbos and in public domain. And so let's continue. We're on Samach Beis Amud Aleph, and we're at the words V'lo b'shirion. It's by the two dots right before the Mishnah. V'lo b'shirion, v'lo b'kasta, v'lo b'magafayim. It's actually talking about what a man is not allowed to go out with. It says he's not allowed to go out with a shirion is like armor covering his body. Kasta is a helmet, and magafayim are shin guards. Okay, these are things that the man is not allowed to go out with on Shabbos. Shirion zrada. Shirion is again a coat of mail, which basically is basically covering the body. Kasta. What is Kasta Amarav San Varta? That is the leather helmet that's worn under the armor helmet, right? You ever see, like, you think of this picture of like a knight? They have like this, like more of like some type of a lighter material type of helmet, and then they have the metal helmet that goes on top of that. Okay, Magafayim, those are shin guards. Amarav, Puzmeke, they are leggings of iron worn during times of war. So why can't a person go out with all these things? The concern is not that the man's going to take them off and show them off. The concern is that a person's going to see it and think that he is going to war. And although there are times when going to war is permitted, it is not. So in situations like that, it would be permitted to wear those items. But in other situations, it would seem like a person's going to war when they are not going into battle, when they're not supposed to be going to battle. Keep in mind, until a little while ago, people would have these feuds, they would have these duels that would take place, and the person would see it and think that maybe a person's going to go into some form of a battle, which is not sanctioned on Shabbos, and therefore, for that reason, Chazal came along and prohibited wearing those items on Shabbos because it may be misinterpreted as the person doing something which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Okay, technically, again, it's a form of clothing, it's a form of, armor is a form of clothing, but because of this concern of Maras Ayin, Chazal therefore prohibited wearing these items. Okay? Again, obviously in a situation where a person is allowed to be going into war, a person is on their way to battle, then they are allowed to wear these things. In situations where they are not, even if they're not going for a private battle, they can't wear these things because of the misinterpretation that could happen.
Does that extend like a bulletproof vest nowadays?
You're saying in a situation where a person is... Could be. You're saying a bulletproof vest in a situation where there is really no, meaning any situation where there's going to be some need for it, like a true need for it, then it would be permitted. The problem is, right, so your typical guard who's going to wear them would be allowed to wear it. It's a situation where there'd be like no justification, then it could look like the person's going to some private battle. Yeah, theoretically, I guess it's hard to imagine what the scenario is going to be, but in theory, it would be the same. I imagine it'd be the same type of thing. Yeah. Okay, so last Mishnah that talks directly about women's jewelry. A woman's not allowed to go out on Shabbos with a needle that has a hole in it. Okay, that has like an eye. Okay, a needle which has an eye is a needle which is used for sewing exclusively. Okay, and therefore it's not jewelry at all. But nor with a ring that has a signet. Right, we saw this earlier. The uniqueness about this Mishnah is is going to be more stringent. It's going to tell us things that not only are you not allowed to do, but these things you are chayav achatas for. Right? Until now, we've been talking about things where if you wear them, you cannot do so, but if you do, you are not chayav achatas because ultimately they are jewelry and therefore an adornment. These are things which are not jewelry and therefore they're all just a burden and therefore you are chayav achatas. So again, a needle that is pierced, with a ring that has a signet, which was, we pointed out, was not the norm for a woman. V'lo b'kulyar, not with a brooch. We're going to talk about what this brooch is soon. V'lo b'chovelas, not with a spice bundle. We'll talk about the spice bundle. V'lo b'tzleiches shel palyaton, not with a flask of balsam oil. V'myatzav, she went out wearing any of these things. Chayav chatas, she is liable for a chatas, meaning this is biblically carrying, because these things are a burden. Divrei Meir, v'chachamim potrim b'chovelas. Chachamim agree for most of them, but they disagree with the spice bundle. Uvitzloches shel palyaton, or with a flask of balsam oil, and we'll talk about why they disagree a little bit later. Amar Ula. Ula comes along and says v'chilufehen be'ish. The opposite is with a man. Now, the way Rashi understands, the opposite is with a man is referring to the ring. In other words, when we saw the previous Mishnah told us the woman who goes out with a regular ring should not do so, but is not chayav achatas. If she goes there with a ring with a signet, then she is chayav achatas. The opposite with a man, meaning a man should not go out with a ring that has a signet on it, meaning it's Asr Midorabanan, and a ring that has no signet, you're Chayav Midoraisa, right? The opposite, the inverse, right? So again, women could go out, should not go out with any, no one's allowed to go out with any rings. But if a woman goes out with a ring without a signet, then she is not Chayav Chatas, it's Asr Midorabanan, because it's really jewelry. But the problem is she might show it to someone else. With a signet, that's a burden. It's not something she normally wears, and therefore Asr Midoraisa. With a man, it's the opposite. If he goes out with a regular ring, then he's Chayav Chatas, because men then did not wear rings, okay? But if he goes out with a ring with a signet, that was the norm, and there was a concern he's going to take it off, and therefore it's Asr Midorabanan. Okay, that's the fine. Amr Ula, fine. Amr Sabar Ula. Call midi dechaz leish lechaz leisha. Midi dechaz leisha lechaz leish. Okay, so the issue, the interpretation is that whatever is fit for a man is not fit for a woman, and something which is fit for a woman is not fit for a man. Masr Rav Yosef asks a question on this principle. Why? We have a bryce that says like this: Haroin yotzim besakin. That shepherds are allowed to go out with sackcloth. Okay, why are shepherds wearing sackcloth? Sackcloth we always see in the context of someone who is in mourning. But a sackcloth essentially is this very thick and uncomfortable clothing. The reason a shepherd would wear it, shepherd's out in the elements a lot, and therefore to protect themselves from the elements, protect themselves from rain, something that's like quasi-waterproof. Sackcloth is waterproof. Sackcloth protects you from all the elements, and therefore is normal for shepherds to go out. And then the Brisa continues, V'lo harom bilvad amru, and when they said that a shepherd's allowed to go out with sackcloth, they were not talking the shepherds alone, Elikal Adam, rather all people are. It's just that it's the norm for shepherds to go out wearing sackcloth, but we see from this price that once it's the norm for shepherds to go out with sackcloth, that means all of us are allowed to wear sackcloth even if we're not a shepherd. So why is it that, why do we have this idea that something that's fit for man is only fit for man, something fit for a woman is only fit for a woman? Once something is fit for one, just like the idea of the shepherd, since it's fit for a shepherd, it should be fit for everyone. So too, if this is something fit for a woman, it should be fit for all people, for men as well. In other words, why are you saying you're going to be chai v'chatas? Once it's fit for one, it should be fit more generally. Elam Rav Yosef Kesavar Ula.
Would that be saying that in this, because we're women shepherds?
No. We're not saying there's women shepherds. We're saying there's a principle.
Right, but the principle is that if it's permissible for the shepherd, it should be permissible for everybody. That wouldn't necessarily assume that it would be permissible to women, only to men.
Correct, but the assumption in the question is that you see this principle that once something is permitted to a subset of the population, because it's normal clothing for them, then that normal clothing for them should be permitted for others who it may not be normal clothing for them.
Right, but it still would be different between men and women.
So that's the Gemara's going to answer that, but it's a bit of the answer is a little bit novel, right? Rav Yosef says, it literally means women are a nation onto their own. Okay, it doesn't literally mean that they're a nation onto their own. What that means is that, like to your point, that's too much of a jump. Shepherds, male shepherds to other male shepherds, or women, female, fill in the blank to other females, fine. But to go, just because it's true for women, it's going to be true for men, that is not the leap we're willing to make. Okay, Bai asked the question from the following case. Hamotzi tefillin, person who finds tefillin, machnisan zug, where we spoke about this the other day, a person finds tefillin on Shabbos in a public domain, you can't carry them. What are you allowed to do? You can put them on pair by pair, okay? Fine. Right, I made a mistake last week. I said you're allowed to put, yesterday I think it was, I said you could put on a bunch at a time. The Mishnah said, we're saying over here, you're allowed to put on one at a time, and then you bring them to a private and safe place, and then you go back and you put another pair. Echad ish v'echad isha. And the Brisa says this is true for both a man and a woman. Okay, both a man and a woman. And if you want to say women are a separate nation, quote unquote, meaning they do not have the same, that what's fit for a man is fit for a man, and what's fit for a woman is fit for a woman. Tefillin is a positive mitzvah that is time bound. And therefore, if it's time bound, women are exempt, right? So what's going on over here? Why just be so clear? It's a man's mitzvah, it's a man's clothing, and yet women, the Mishnah is telling us, or the Bryce is telling us over here, could put on tefillin in order to save them. So you see that if something is fit for a man, it's fit for a woman as well. That's the principle we've been, arguing about. So where it says Hasam Kesavar Rameir Laila Zman Tefillin Hu, this Bryce is holding like Rameir. Rameir has a very unique view. First of all, he holds that nighttime is a time for tefillin, which makes it and not a mitzvah sasesha man grama. It makes it something which is chayav, you're chayav for day and night. The Shabbos man tefillin hu, he also holds that Shabbos is time for tefillin. Okay, havle mitzvah sasesha lo has man grama, and therefore it's a mitzvah that is shayach 24/7. It's a mitzvah that is always relevant. And any positive mitzvah that is not bound by time, women are obligated. And that's why women is allowed to wear the tefillin on Shabbos, because it's going like Rabbi Meir holds that women are actually full-fledged chayavos to wear tefillin. Now, we do not. This goes against the Mishnah in Brachos, which is listed anonymously, and therefore disagreeing with it, and therefore we go like that Mishnah. But it's worth noting there is an opinion. There is a Tana who says that women are fully obligated to wear tefillin. This Mishnah, if you remember, there's a couple of years ago, there's a big discussion. SAR, one of the big one of the big Jewish schools in New York. There were one or two girls that were wearing tefillin, and there was a whole big discussion about a woman's obligation. This source came up, of course. It's very. I mean, I don't think anyone debates whether or not we rule like this opinion. Everyone agrees that this opinion is not normative. That it's everyone else agrees that it's a mitzvah sestacious magrama. There are numerous mishnayos which indicate that wearing tefillin at night is not our mitzvah. We saw that earlier. Bottom line is that is not the norm. Everyone agrees that women are not obligated. Where there is an interesting discussion is that women are also not obligated to shake lulav and esrog. Women are also not obligated to go into a sukkah. Women are also not obligated to, a lot of other things that women do. Not only do they say a bracha on, at least for Ashkenazim, right? There's a big discussion amongst a big debate amongst Ashkenazim and Sephardim. If a woman shakes lulav and esrog, which she is not obligated to do, so the question is, can you say Asher Kedishanu Mitzvos V'Tzivanu? You commanded me if I'm actually exempt, right? So Sephardim say, of course you can't say it. You're not obligated. But Ashkenazim, the minhag of Ashkenazim is that we do say this mitzvah, we do say this bracha, that a woman does say, you commanded me. So the question is, does this apply for tefillin, that a woman's allowed to go ahead and put on tefillin even though she's not obligated to do so? Matter of much debate. There were Rishonim who did not allow it to happen. Of course, famously, although not so clear in terms of sources, but we have Rashi's daughters who allegedly put on tefillin. But there are opinions who forbade women from wearing tefillin, which would be the exception, not the rule. Meaning most mitzvahs that are mitzvahs aseh shelo as man grama, women are able to choose to do. They could opt in, they could opt out. A woman doesn't have to go to the sukkah. She could go to the sukkah. And if she goes to the sukkah, she's fulfilling a mitzvah. But tefillin is the one exception, seemingly according to many Rishonim, and brought down by many later poskim, that even though normally a woman could opt in for a mitzvah aseh shelo as man grama, tefillin is the one exception to that rule. Okay. Fine, longer discussion, but this source over here is brought up in that context. Okay, ask the Gemara further. The Mishnah said that if a woman wears a signet ring outside on Shabbos, she is chayav a chatas. Ask the Gemara, v'otzah kil achar yadhi. This is a strange way to carry a burden. What's the question? The question is like this: if something is not your clothing, then the normal way to carry it is in your hand. It's like if I'm taking something which is not clothing, I don't know, I'm taking a tissue, so I hold it, right? If I go ahead and I wrap the tissue on my finger, that is an abnormal way of carrying it, and therefore I should not be chayav a chatas. It might be aser, but I shouldn't be chayav a chatas. If you're telling me that a woman does not wear a ring with a signet on it, then wearing it on her finger is not a normal way of carrying it. Meaning, if it's not part of her clothing, she should carry it in her hand. And then she'll be chayav a chatas. But if she's carrying it by wearing it, then that's not a normal way of carrying it. And whenever you do something in an abnormal fashion, still aser, but it brings it down to a d'Rabbanan. Why is that not happening over here? Rav Yirmiyah, Be'isha Gizbaris Askinan. We're talking about a woman who is an overseer. In other words, we said the norm is that a woman does not wear these, need a signet ring, because it wasn't the norm for women to be signing documents back in the day. But of course, there were exceptions. And we're talking about a woman who is an overseer. She's constantly using this type of ring, and therefore, for her, it's normal. Okay, so if it's for her, it's normal. Let's take it a step further. And why is she chayav at all? Right? So the answer is that we go like this. We go with rov nashim. We go with the majority of women. It's considered a burden. Okay, but regarding her, so therefore, by definition, it's a burden. Okay, since for most women are not overseers, we treat a ring with a signet as a burden for all women on Shabbos. The question is, okay, so for her it's abnormal. The answer is it's not abnormal for her to be wearing it this way, because for her it's normal to wear it. That should therefore make it not carrying? No. The bottom line is that we treat this, we classify it. For men, this is X. For women, it's Y. X, Y, whatever it is. And the point is that for her, it is considered a burden, even though for her in particular wouldn't, but that's not enough to break free from the general category of it being a burden. It's just that since for her it's normal to wear it, therefore it's not considered, therefore for her it's not considered an abnormal way of carrying it, and therefore she's chayav chatas. Like, it's almost like counterintuitive, right? She should be exempt, or at least exempt d'oraisa. No, it actually makes it worse, because the fact that for her it's normal to wear it, and therefore it actually makes it like a normal type of carrying. Okay? Yeah.
How is that different than the shepherds now? Like, why do we stand up for the shepherds and say that anyone can wear sackcloth, but for this, they're saying that
Um,
Where the rings.
Okay, so why is it different than shepherds? Let's see. So you're saying that by a shepherd, no one wears it. Perhaps it would seem that we're saying that for regular people, wearing sackcloth maybe is not so common or something like that. We're saying since this person wears it normally, therefore it's going to be considered like normal, but it would be like not so common. For a woman it would seem like, I guess it would seem like completely abnormal. Meaning I could say like, right, it'd be not so common for me to wear it as opposed to like abnormal for me to wear it. I think I would have to distinguish, right? Presumably you'd have to distinguish something along those lines. Yeah, good question. Amar Rabba. So Rabba pushes back. He says, Taratz to Isha, Ish Ma'ikla Memar. Okay, the Mishnah also said a man who wears a regular ring, right? In other words, the Mishnah said two things. It said a woman who wears a ring with a signet that is considered for her carrying, and it said a man who wears a ring without a signet that is considered carrying for him. So what do you say in that case? Okay. Fine. Ella Amarava, for the record, just want to be very clear, the minhag changed. Meaning very clear. If men are wearing regular rings, then obviously it's not considered carrying. Back in the day, it would be abnormal for a man to wear a ring without a signet, and therefore that's where the question comes from. Okay. Ella Amarava, Rava comes along and gives a new answer. He says there are times when a man gives his wife a ring that has a signet, to put it away. Right? This ring is very valuable. It's a signature. Right? It wasn't a toy, and therefore he gives it to his wife. He says, "Hey, could you go ahead and store this in our special place?" Okay. And while she's holding it, she doesn't just hold it in her hands. She wants to protect this. What does she do? She puts it on her finger. Okay. And there are times that a woman gives her husband her ring that has no seal on it to take it to the repair shop. And he wears it until he reaches the repair shop, the craftsman, and therefore during that time they're wearing it, and it's normal to be wearing it, meaning it's a normal way for a person, even though it's not normal for a man to wear a ring without a signet, and it wasn't normal for a woman to wear a ring with a signet. But since there were times when they were transferring it, they were bringing it somewhere else, and the way they would transfer it, when you are carrying a ring, but essentially what the Gemara is trying to convey is if you're carrying a ring, even if it's not your normal ring, the only way you typically carry a ring is by putting it on your finger. And therefore, this is considered normative carrying, and that's why you are chai v'chatas. Okay, the Gemara goes further. A quote from the Mishnah. She can't go with a kulyar nor a spice bundle. My kulyar, what is a kulyar? Amarav machbanta. It is a brooch, okay, that holds together a woman's blouse. Apparently, it was very odd. It wasn't a normal type of thing to wear, and since it was a very abnormal thing to wear, therefore, even though it is jewelry, since it's such an abnormal type of jewelry to wear, you should be chai v'chatas. Kovelas, what's a spice bundle? Amarav chumarta de filon. It's a packet containing pilon. Pilon is a spice that smells very good. Okay. V'chein amaravasi chumarta de filon. It's a pendant that holds on to spices. Okay. So why would a woman wear this? We should wear this if she had bad. They didn't bathe as often as we do, and they didn't have deodorant like we did. And this was basically a form of perfume. It was like you walk around perfume. You would walk the way instead of spraying yourself, you would have like aromatic spices that a person would wear on themselves in order to create a nice smell, and so they wouldn't smell bad. Okay, Tana Rabbana. We now have a brayso that discusses this spice bundle with three different opinions. Okay, lo teitze bechovela. So a woman's not allowed to go with the spice bundle. Vim yatsa chayev chatas. If she does, she is chayev chatas. Divrei Rameir. Rameir says it is full-fledged carrying. V'chacham omrim lo seitze. She is not allowed to go out. Vim yatsa petura. But if she goes out, she's pater. Eliezer Omer Yotza Isha Bechavelas Lechatchila. We saw the similar structure earlier. Eliezer says no, she's allowed to go out with this spice bundle, no problem at all. But Mike Mifli, what's this debate about? Rameir Savar Masohu. Rameir holds that the spice bundle is a burden. Okay, it's not a piece of jewelry. It's considered like a burden. Meaning jewelry is, and many women would not wear these things. It was like a unique type of thing to wear. In other words, typically women, it was only worn if a person smells really bad, and therefore it wasn't a normal type of thing to wear, and therefore it's considered a burden and not jewelry. Rabbanan Savri Takshidu. Rabbanan say no. At the end of the day, it's an ornament. At the end of the day, it's for an aesthetic, not a physical appearance aesthetic, but it's there for a smell, and that's part of your clothing. The problem was the concern was that a woman may take it off and show it to her friends. And again go to carry it for amos in the public domain. Eliezer Savar man darka lemerma. Who wears a spice bundle? Isha sharecha ra, person whose odor is unpleasant. Isha sharecha ra lo shafia shalfa machiva. It's not the show off type of a thing. In other words, it's one thing to show off your jewelry, and no one's going to show off. Like, oh, look at me, I'm a person who needs to have this special odor thing. No, of course not. No one's going to show this off, and therefore lo asya rabim, and therefore And therefore, according to Eliezer, it is mutter lechatchila because for this item there's no concern. We saw Eliezer make a similar exception to the silver, to the city of gold. Eliezer also said there, since it was only worn by very wealthy women, it was tactless to take it off, and therefore he permitted carrying it lechatchila. Okay, the Gemara has a contradiction with Eliezer's view. Tanya Eliezer poter bechavelas v'tzlocha shel pal yaton. Eliezer says she is pater. Pater means it's aser, but you're not going to bring a chatas when she wears a spice bundle or flask of balsam oil. The balsam oil had the same function; it was just a nice smelling thing. So on the one hand, he says it's mutter lechatchila, and the other place says pater, meaning pater aval aser. Lo kasha haki kayad rameir haki kayad rabbanan. There's no problem. Rabbi Eliezer, one place he's in conversation with Rameir, who said you're chayv chatas. He said no, you're not chayv chatas. You're exempt from a chatas. The other place he was talking to the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan said you're pater, and he said you're not pater. You are completely it's mutter. Okay, so kikayid Rameir damar chayv chatas. When he was talking with Rameir, who said you're chayv chatas, amalei pater. And then he said no, you're not chayv. You are exempt from the chatas. Kikayid Rabbanan damar pater laser amar iu mutter lechatchila. When he was speaking to the Rabbanan, who said that it is pater laser, he said no, it is completely mutter. The Gemara now just tries to bring our source. Where is the place where he's speaking to Rameir or my Rameir? Where do we see him talking to Rameir? To Tanya, we have a brayso that says like this. We're top of Samach Beis Mabez. Lo seitze isha maftech shebiyada. A woman's not allowed to go out with a key that's in her hand. V'im yatsa chayev chatas. If she goes out with a key in her hand, she's chayev chatas. Divrei Rameir. Eliezer poter bechavelas v'tzlocha shel payatin. Eliezer says she's pater in the case of a spice bundle or a flask of balsam oil. The Gemara asks, Kovelas mandach rishmei. Where's the dialogue over here? Rameir is talking about a key, and all of a sudden Eliezer says, "Oh, she's pater by a spice bundle." There's no mention of it. No, the Mishnah is missing some words. V'chitain, this is the way the brayso should be read. Just like Rameir said, she can't go out with a key. She also can't go out with a spice bundle and a flask of balsam oil. Okay, if she does, she's chayv chatas to Rameir. Eliezer poter b'chavelas payatan. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer says that no, she is pater in that case, and that's when he was going in the context of Rameir. In our Mishnah, in the earlier brayso we just saw, he was talking to the Rabbanan who said that she is pater, and he said not only pater, mutter. And then the Gemara just qualifies Rabbi Eliezer's teaching. B'medvar mamurim k'sheyisha b'hem bosem. This is when there is spices or oils in them. Aval ein b'hem bosem chayeves. But if there's no spice or oil, then of course you're chayev. If it's empty, the whole point is that she's not going to take it off because it shows that she has a bad odor. But if it's empty, then she, like this flask or this pendant is empty, then she would not be allowed to do so because then she may take it off. Okay, let's just. I believe we're at the kind of the end of where it talks about jewelry. So let's just discuss this because at the end of the day, people are not knowing this way, right? If there is a woman has jewelry, if you have a place where there's no eruv, you'll see women wearing jewelry. This is minhag Yisrael to wear jewelry on Shabbos. Even though we have all these mishnayos over here telling us that a woman can't go basically with any jewelry, right? More or less any jewelry is forbidden to be worn on Shabbos. Yet we see women wearing jewelry on Shabbos, even in a place where there's no eruv. So there's two main approaches to this question. The starting point of all the discussions that we're showing him is no one's following the Mishnah. That's their starting point. The starting point is like something's off over here. So one opinion is that there is one opinion is that there is a discussion about wearing it in a private Rishus Harabim D'Rabbanan, meaning like a Carmelis, and there is an opinion that says in a Carmelis it is mutter. So the Rishonim want to say we paskin like that opinion that in a Carmelis it's mutter, and therefore that would be okay. In most of our Rishus Harabims are not really Rishus Harabim D'Oraisa, and therefore they're going to be okay. Now that's a little questionable because that's not always the case. There are cases where our Rishus Harabim is really a full-fledged Rishus Harabim. We don't see people being makbid about only wearing it in Rishus Harabim D'Rabbanan, meaning a Carmelis, and distinguishing between one Rishus Harabim and another. So that opinion is highly debated. There's another opinion, and this is a wild opinion by one of the Gaonim, who said that the Rabbanim, when they had all these Mishnayos, they weren't telling you it's Aser. They were just recommending, since you might come take it off, be very careful. Okay, that doesn't sound like it from where we learned. It sounds like it is usher, right? But that's what something Onim want to say. So again, clearly this practice of wearing jewelry goes back at least 1,000 plus years when the Onim lived. And basically the many of the Rishonim, the Achronim, they quote this. They say, look, it seems like people are, the Aruch HaShulchan quotes this, says, I don't know. He says the first opinion is certainly not true. The second opinion, it must be, we go with that second opinion, that all these Mishnayos they were saying, and now don't try taking this to other things. Oh, Bas Rechalab, we recommend it. No, so it's limited to this idea that okay, it seems like it was a recommendation, there's a concern I might take it off, but it wasn't actually saying it's usher, and that must be the way that that it was interpreted for many years, and that's why women were wearing jewelry, even though again, it certainly is not the pashtus, but many achronim go with this. There are sources that say, and therefore a woman really shouldn't wear jewelry in a place where there is no erev, but it seems like minhag Yisrael is to go ahead and rely on these lenient views, even though it is it's in some ways hard to justify, but it's clearly as minhag Yisrael. I wouldn't stop anyone, I wouldn't recommend, discourage anyone if someone's learning these gemaras and says, hey, I really shouldn't be wearing this. Yeah, they probably shouldn't be wearing them. But again, minhag Yisrael is to wear jewelry despite these mishnayos. Okay, have a great day.